Imagine a room filled with America's sharpest legal minds. Harvard Law School, a packed auditorium, the most powerful judicial voice in the country sitting just feet away from a rising congresswoman. Everything is calm, civil, academic. Then suddenly, a Supreme Court justice looks directly at a sitting congresswoman and challenges her interpretation of the Constitution, live, in front of the nation's legal elite. And what happens next? Instead of backing down, the congresswoman responds with such precision, balance, and intellectual force that even the justice is left visibly impressed. This was not politics. This was constitutional history unfolding in real time. Welcome to today's deep dive into one of the most remarkable moments of modern constitutional dialogue, the extraordinary exchange between Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan and Representative Jasmine Crockett at Harvard Law School's distinguished lecture. What began as a polite academic discussion turned into a powerful confrontation over the future of constitutional interpretation in America. And at the center of it all, a fundamental question. Is the problem judicial overreach or congressional failure? Stay with us, because what unfolded next redefined what respectful disagreement at the highest level of power truly looks like. The Harvard Law Auditorium was filled beyond capacity. Law students, professors, constitutional scholars, and legal professionals all gathered to witness a panel exploring how power flows between the branches of American government. On stage sat Justice Elena Kagan, one of the most formidable legal minds on the Supreme Court, alongside Representative Jasmine Crockett, a first-term congresswoman from Texas, rapidly becoming known for her legal sharpness and constitutional insight. For nearly 40 minutes, the discussion remained calm and academic. Panelists spoke about congressional delegation, administrative agencies, and the delicate balance between legislative intent and judicial review. Then came the turning point. A question was posed about recent Supreme Court decisions limiting the power of federal agencies. Representative Crockett took the microphone. With calm precision, Crockett expressed concern not about disagreement over policy, but about methodological inconsistency within the court itself. She argued that the Supreme Court had selectively applied originalism, that it restricted Congress using historical limits while expanding judicial power beyond those same historical constraints. Her words were clear, controlled, and deeply substantive. She suggested that when the same constitutional language is interpreted differently depending on outcome, it creates the perception that constitutional analysis follows desired results rather than principled consistency. The room shifted. This was no longer just theory. This was a direct challenge to the court's methodology. And Justice Kagan was listening. Justice Kagan pivoted from her prepared remarks and addressed Crockett directly. Her tone, sharp, surgical, unmistakably authoritative. She questioned whether Congress itself had failed by drafting vague legislation and offloading responsibility onto administrative agencies, forcing courts to step in and draw boundaries lawmakers should have defined from the start. In essence, she reframed the problem. Not judicial activism, but legislative abdication. The atmosphere changed instantly. The audience fell silent. All eyes moved to Crockett. Would the young congresswoman retreat? Deflect? Mute her critique? She didn't. Instead, Crockett acknowledged Justice Kagan's point with grace. She agreed that Congress must bear responsibility for vague drafting, and admitted that more precise legislation was essential. But she didn't stop there. With extraordinary composure, she reframed the issue as one of mutual responsibility. She cited historical precedents like Gibbons versus Ogden, reminding the audience that early courts exercised profound restraint and viewed congressional commerce power as expansive and complete. She argued that selectively applying history to limit Congress while expanding judicial oversight creates the very legitimacy crisis Americans now feel. Her message was simple but profound. True constitutional strength requires consistency, not convenience. The silence in the hall was absolute. Legal observers would later describe this response as a masterclass in institutional dialogue, a rare moment where accountability met intellectual courage without ego or disrespect. Justice Kagan's expression softened, shifting from confrontation to contemplation. And then she responded. Acknowledging the fairness of Crockett's critique, Justice Kagan agreed that courts too must reflect on methodological consistency. What followed was not rivalry, but respect. a shared commitment to constitutional coherence. This exchange wasn't entertainment. It was a blueprint, a demonstration of how democracy should function when institutions disagree. Two powerful figures from different branches engaging in honest critique without reducing the moment to political spectacle. Crockett did not seek victory. Kagan did not seek domination. Instead, they sought clarity. They modeled what principled governance should look like in an era dominated by polarization and performative outrage. This moment reminded us that the Constitution is not a weapon, it is a responsibility. Constitutional legitimacy does not arise from power, it arises from consistency, restraint, and principle. What America witnessed at Harvard Law was not a clash of personalities, but a meeting of minds committed to preserving the integrity of democratic governance. And if this is the future of constitutional dialogue, then perhaps, despite all the noise, the system still holds hope.